We're live. Chase, BYU versus Cincinnati preview. We are a couple days past the Arizona game. BYU fell to Arizona, as we all know. BYU, Cincinnati, the game is on the road in Cincinnati. Obviously, these two played just a couple weeks ago. BYU lit it up in the second half against them in a blowout win, won by 28, Chase. But before we get into that game, talking about the Arizona game, any different feelings from where you felt after Tuesday night? You know, the world's not falling, the sky's not falling, the world's not ending. Is that how you still feel?
Yeah, I'm staying strong on that point. I think BYU is still in a fine position, and the more you look back on that Arizona game and look at the stats and everything, the way they played, it's just like, you just gotta tip your hat in life, and in that case, you gotta tip your hat to the Wildcats. And BYU's got a chance to bounce back. I mean, this is another quad one opportunity, a very winnable game, a game they'll be favored in. And so they can get right back on track here this weekend, Carter.
They absolutely can. And we talked about it after the UCF game. It's 500 here on out. So BYU goes 1-1 this week. That's a big win because you look at any of the bracketology things going on right now. BYU, when they lost to Arizona, they didn't move down at all. That loss did not hurt them in any way. It would have been nice to have, but those are just, it's extra credit points in a class, basically. You don't really get docked for not winning those games. Eventually, you got to win one of those top quality games, which they have plenty of chances to do so. But you look at the schedule right now, going forward, I mean, look, 500 the rest of the way. You go 1-1 this week. You go 1-1 next week. Honestly, 2-0 next week is very doable. West Virginia's slipping, and then Kansas State is barely a quad 3 game. Hopefully that gets brought up to a quad 2 game, but you should take care of Kansas State. Even if BYU goes out and lays an egg against Cincinnati, it's still not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. We're pretty rational on that point, but this does feel like a game, in my mind, BYU is really focusing on, and that BYU fans are really expecting a huge win here because they just did it, right? Because Cincinnati's struggling. BYU beat them by dang near 30 just a couple weeks ago. But you got to take into account a lot of things. One, Cincinnati looks better. That hasn't been too long, but they certainly looked good Tuesday night. And then you also have to take into account this is the start of a long road trip for the Cougs. I don't know if they're going to be flying back to Utah.
They are not.
They are not. All right, we got that confirmed. So this is a big test of how resilient are you and how can you band together here, and that will take more effect into this West Virginia game. But you still got to travel all the way Cincinnati. You got to be away from the road from your home, and BYU struggled early, but they've seemed to have found their groove a little bit at least here in these last few games, pointing obviously to the UCF win, which was huge. They're going to need that type of performance. I would expect this game to be close, but this is just one of those golden opportunities we've been talking about, Carter, a winnable quad 1 road game. Like, again, it's not the end of the world if they lose it, but you'd feel something because of the way that they beat them last time. That's really the biggest thing here. Like, we'd be like, man, this was black and white, these two games, which could happen. Cincinnati's, they're playing on their home court. They got things that they are trying to figure out, and they're going to be coming out with a fire for some revenge. They've seen them before. They've made their adjustments. They've watched the film. BYU needs to be ready for the Bearcats.
They do need to be ready. And also, going into this stretch, like you kind of touched on it there, this is a very winnable 3-0 stretch right here. You go 3-0 in this little stretch right here, all of a sudden you're, 8-5 in conference at that point? You've set yourself up very pretty the rest of the way. And to be honest, if you knocked off 2 straight quad 1 wins, you are looking great on that bubble side. Right now, BYU is just hanging on by a thread. They're just on the side of the cliff, just hanging on right there, trying to pull themselves up. And if you win these 2 quad 1 games, all of a sudden, you're looking very pretty. And despite a horrific collapse to close the season, you'd probably be looking to be in the tournament at that point.
Yeah, for sure. I think, if they go 3-0, they'd be 9-5 actually.
9
conference play.
9-5.
4 games above 500, you're a tournament team. So just go 1-1 from that point on. You do have your toughest games there towards the end, but you'd be just fine. And so this is another one of those stretches we talked about. And if you've listened all season, we talked about that stretch of, TCU and Utah.
Yeah.
Certainly didn't pan out for the Cougs, these winnable games. And then they got on this roll, and they've come all the way back. But this is a stretch they really need to focus. I think, I mentioned also in our season opener, I pointed to this week this 4-day stretch of this road trip and said, this is going to be a big test for BYU. Just being in these environments and going to teams who, look, West Virginia, they're by no means a lock, and their season's slipping a little bit. They need to get these big wins. I think it'll be only quad 2. I think BYU's dropped to a quad 2 game for these two teams. You can correct me if I'm wrong while I'm still talking, Carter. But I think they're still looking at this as a huge opportunity to knock off a BYU team who does bring good statistics, who would be looked at as a good win for both Cincinnati and West Virginia. So, I mean, huge stretch because of where you can put yourself in, but also you can't freak out too much if they don't come away unscathed. It's the Big 12 after all.
It is the Big 12 after all, but I worry about the mindset going into this game a little bit when you talk about, oh, they won by 28 last time. They dominated them in the second half. They lit it up from three-point range. And is that a thing that can continue? Probably not. That you're probably going to have to win in a different way because you're not going to shoot 75% plus in the second half. But looking at Cincinnati right now, the other thing about this is two things. One, Cincinnati, they're pretty far outside the bubble. They've struggled a little bit. This is a quad 2 game for Cincinnati, but also they still have a ton of chances because they also play in the Big 12. You can knock off a ton of quad 1 wins. Wes Miller right now is coaching for his job. Wes Miller is coaching for his life right now because this is a team that was preseason top 25, projected to finish top 5 in the Big 12. They were a tourney lock before the season. And meanwhile, they're not really sniffing the bubble right now. They got their big win against UCF on the road. That's a big quad 1 win for them. They knock off a win against BYU. They're starting to feel good about themselves and thinking, you know what, we go on a little stretch here. We can go dancing. We can go to March Madness. So they're coming out desperate in this game, and they're not coming out checked out in this game. They are playing for their lives. Every single game for a team, especially like Cincinnati right now, is essentially a tournament game the rest of the season.
That's a really good point because Wes Miller is, in fact, coaching for his job because I think the way the season's gone, that's the point where you go when you have these conversations with power. You
got to make coaches. The tournament. They've put so much money into that program. You got to make the tournament.
Yeah, so BYU needs to be focused, right? And they could come in thinking two things. They could be thinking, one, we beat these guys by 30 and we should be good to go. Or they could be coming hungry and desperate. I think, honestly, I feel better about BYU in this game coming off of a loss against Arizona than I would if they had won that game.
Oh, if they won that game on Tuesday night against Arizona, we would have been sitting here like, look, this is an obvious letdown spot. Traveling 2 time zones. You're going to end up being on a week-long road trip. I don't know about all this.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually think the loss is good. And I certainly, Kevin Young in the coaching staff, they're not ones to mess around. I know they're taking Cincinnati seriously despite how they handled them. But it's still in the back of your mind, right? You did this in high school. You like looked up the other team's max preps and you're like, how much did they lose to this team by? We already played that team. You do these like transitive how we should handle them kind of things. And you just get lost in it. And you just need to focus on who's on the court in front of you right then and how you're going to beat them. I do think again, because of that loss to Arizona, the way it happened, the things that they can look on at film, I think BYU comes in really like hyper focused in this moment to beat Cincinnati again. It'd be huge. Beating a team twice is no joke for pretty much any team, especially in the Big 12
conference. Yeah. I mean, look, if you're beating Miami in the ACC twice, look, pat yourself on the back, have fun with that, but here's a cookie.
Right. Exactly. So this is a big moment for BYU. It's going to test, like we've been saying, mental toughness. Can you focus? Can you travel 2 time zones? Can you prepare yourself mentally to be in this environment where Wes Miller coaching for his job, desperate Cincinnati team? I don't know how much like revenge is a big motivation for them, but look, they got embarrassed in Provo just a few weeks ago. I think they want to prove something here. They have film to look at where they can say, okay, we have this on BYU. We can do this, and this better. So they're going to make a ton of adjustments. And BYU needs to come in with the same mindset, right? They can't come in and be like, let's just do the exact same thing. Although a lot of that was working. They also need to make their own adjustments because Cincinnati is certainly changing up the game plan.
Absolutely. Let's break this game down and do predictions and MVP stuff right after this break. Chase, let's break down this game. BYU Cincinnati. Last time out, Cincinnati only shot 4 free throws, 25% from the line. They went 1 for 4 from the line. Look, you could have given them 20 free throws. Probably wouldn't have mattered. BYU was just knocking shots down that night. I worry this game's at Cincinnati. You're going to get a little home cooking by the refs. They're going to shoot a lot more than 4 free throws in this game because the way the game script played out last time, BYU starts knocking down a ton of threes. Then Cincinnati falls behind 10-12. All of a sudden, they're thinking, oh, man, we got to start playing a little bit of Hail Mary ball. Let's just start shooting some threes with them to keep in this game. And that's what blew it open in that spot. BYU has to stay out of foul trouble in this game because Wes Miller and the Cincinnati team, they want to get into the paint. They want to drive. They want to get physical with BYU. And BYU has been shown that they can be prone to fouling against really physical teams.
Yeah, Cincinnati is very much a muck-it-up kind of team where they're going to really focus on just slowing everything BYU does, especially after the performance that they saw. Like all the films they're showing is just BYU running, gunning, knocking down shots left and right. And so if you're Wes Miller and the coaching staff, you're thinking, we got to slow this all the way down. And Cincinnati is still one of the best defenses in the Big 12, right? They didn't actually show that the last time out. But will they be better at home? My guess is yes. And on offense, Cincinnati's not the greatest three-point shooting team, and they didn't show out this last time. But again, you're back at home. You got a little bit of momentum. You always shoot better in your own gym, right? And BYU's, look, one of their weaknesses is giving up open three-pointers. And you can point to the Arizona game where they shot amazing. A lot of it was just great shot making, but there was also a lot of open shots. BYU is prone to getting exposed in that matter when they slate to switch and whatever they're doing with the zone sometimes, and credit to the coaches who have coached against them running some awesome sets. But still, right, if Cincinnati gets hot from three in their own gym, BYU is going to find themselves maybe in a little bit, not exactly a shootout, but BYU is going to have to hit some big shots too. So when it comes to Cincinnati, you're right, stay out of foul trouble. Don't let them muck it up. Don't let them slow you down, because I think Cincinnati is prone to also fouling. That's how they slow the pace down. BYU's got to hit their own free throws in this spot, Carter, which, who knows if they will. In fact, the odds say they don't, the way the season's been going. But I expect a pretty ugly game Saturday.
Yeah, we expected an ugly game last time out, and BYU just lit it up. They shot almost 63% from three. They went 9 of 11 from the free throw line in that game. That's going to be key, hitting free throws on the road. The other thing from last game that is very interesting, and Wes Miller talked about this in the press conference after the game, he talked about how they were going to guard Yegor Demin in this game going into the one at the Marriott Center. And if you remember last time out, Yegor played a fantastic game, maybe his best game of the season at that point. He went 3 for 5 from three, and that's when he was getting out of his cold streak of shooting threes. He was passing it around. They played drop coverage on every single time on Yegor. He was getting open shots, and they said in the postgame, Wes Miller goes, well, yeah, he shoots 28% from three. Of course we're going to do that. That's going to be our game plan. We're going to let him shoot with that. If he hits them, we live with it. So, therefore, going into this game, that's kind of the key right there, is can Yegor knock down shots? Because they're going to be there for him. Wes Miller is going to probably say, if most coaches would say, look, let him shoot. He's a 28% three-point shooter. Have him take those shots. And last time out, Yegor was getting to the paint, getting fouled. He went 6 of 7 from the free throw line. Knocking down easy buckets from Yegor Demin is going to be massive in this game, and he's got to be able to do that, because I don't see why Cincinnati would change that unless they go, we can't let what happened last time. Because if they try to go after Yegor on those spots and not go under screens, he's going to cook them on the pick and roll, and that opens up things very differently. So I assume they're still going to go under on screens against him, and he's got to be able to knock down those shots.
He does, and he was not the great three-point shooter still, right? He burned him a little bit last time, but he hasn't shown that he's just lethal from that area.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what does Cincinnati do with Yegor? Are they still going to sit back? Are they going to, I'm sure they're making adjustments on that pick and roll. I'm sure they've watched all the Caba tape and how to defend that, right? So Yegor's going to have to adjust to the game as well and slow things down. And you're right, Carter, he has to be a threat. And this is going on for the rest of the season. He has to be a threat from 15 feet out, because if he can develop that, then the pick and roll becomes unstoppable. Because what do? You fight over it? Well, guess what? You got this guy rolling, it's over. You have this guy helping, he's finding the guy in the corner. And that's what Yegor does best. If you remember, I think he had 15 points, 7 assists in that Cincinnati game. So he was kind of doing it all, knocking down shots and still finding guys. My guess is Cincinnati's going to focus heavy on him. They're going to focus heavy on Richie Saunders as well, who shot, of course, lights out and has been shooting lights out for weeks.
And sneaky things to bring up from the last time these guys played is Cannon also went 3 for 4 from 3 in that game and knocked down some big shots. And Dawson Baker had a great game. I'm looking at the box score right now, and he was getting to his spots in that. I think everything, when you're knocking down threes like that, the game is just so easy to play. Everything's open. Everybody's able to get in rhythm and get to their spots. And, everybody's confidence is way higher. When you're knocking down threes like that, it's an easy game to play. And that's not going to happen again. They're not going to shoot 63% from 3 again. And if they do, great. They're going to win this basketball game by 20 plus.
Exactly. Yeah. So BYU, where are you going to find the buckets, right? Because like you said, you're not going to shoot that way. Can you figure out this offense? Now, we did not like what we saw the last 7 minutes. No one did. You can go look at every game log ever. It was awful, right? But we did like the first 35 minutes of that Arizona game when BYU was getting to the paint. They were driving. You can do that against Cincinnati. They don't have necessarily, and I don't want to throw shade. I'm just pointing out. They don't have a really massive rim protector there to keep BYU from it.
I would disagree. I would say Aziz Bandango is going to be able to protect the rim for them.
Probably. You could say that. But my point is, and this point has always been literally all season, is getting to the lane is going to be the key for everything for BYU, right? Yegor Demon showed a lot of initiative driving to the basket. Dallin Hall, we talked about it extensively. Richie's always looking to get in there. Even Mawit Mag, right, is showing how aggressive he can be driving baseline, getting in there and finding Foose, Kaba, and those things for those little putbacks. I think that's going to be the key for BYU because obviously Cincinnati is going to look at the tape and go, we have to keep a lot of these guys off the free throw line. They remember what Trevin Neal did a year ago, right, and how many threes he made. They saw the 63% right in their faces just a couple of weeks ago. The big coaching point probably is going to be can't let these guys shoot open shots. And so my question is just how does BYU counter? And I think it has to be driving to the lane and getting that action, showing a threat at the rim for Cincinnati.
And that goes to my next point is Kaba's got to stay out of foul trouble. That's going to be something we say going into every single game this season because he's become that important. And when you have a lob threat like Aziz Bandango, who's got a 9-foot wingspan, it can jump out of the gym, can probably touch the top of the backboard. You got to be able to have Kaba in there to stop that lob threat, which Cincinnati does like going to. And BYU was able to eliminate that last time they played. So, but it's tough to put a lot of stock into last time they played because, once again, BYU shot the lights out of the gym, and this is a road game, so it's going to be very different. BYU's likely going to be favored on the road, probably by 1.5, according to the analytics right now. How does that make you feel?
It's weird because, you won by 28 the last time you saw this team. But at the same time, I don't know if I would feel confident bumping it up towards BYU because you're playing Cincinnati now. You're coming off a loss, and we still, it's easy for us to say we've watched every second of this BYU team play basketball this season. So the flaws, the weaknesses are very apparent to us with how much we've watched. And so, yeah, I'm can BYU lose this game? Absolutely. And I don't think there's any really BYU fan who's just uber confident right now. Oh, we smoked those guys before. And if you are great for you, but you need to kind of get into the reality a little bit. This is still a tough matchup. It's 2 time zones away. Cincinnati, like we talked about, playing for a lot, playing desperate. And so I think it's a fair line. And honestly, I would not be shocked either way this game goes. I think Cincinnati has the potential to beat BYU. I think BYU has the potential to do exactly what they just did. It's really up in the air for me.
Yeah. We'll get into predictions and MVP here in a second. With the spread, I mean, it kind of just proved what we were going to say before, where it's a coin flip game. And look, even with a 7-point spread in the Big 12, it still feels like a coin flip game in this conference. We saw Kansas State beat Iowa State and kind of whoop Iowa State, and they were a 13-point dog in that game. So the spread is almost irrelevant at that point. And with this BYU Cincinnati game, my last key for it, and I touched on this a little bit, free throws. You got to make your free throws in this game. Knock your free throws down. Take the free baskets. And because I think there are going to be a lot of fouls in this game. And the number one key is make the front end of your 1-and-1s, because those are just flat out missed opportunities left and right. You cannot miss the front end of your 1-and-1s. I think that's going to be key, especially in the second half, where it's a big momentum swing. It's a 2-point game, 3-point game, and BYU player gets bumped going to the free throw line. They're 1-and-1. And if you miss that first free throw, like, those are just critical moments in big games. You got to knock down your free throws in this one. You got to shoot around the same percentage you did last time against the Cincinnati team. But it also helps the Cincinnati team can't shoot free throws either. They rank second to last in the Big 12 in free throw shooting.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be a big point. It's going to be a big point for BYU all season. I would not be shocked, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, if the season came down to, like, all of a sudden someone's at the free throw line and we're all like, oh my gosh.
Just envision it. BYU's down 1. It's 75-74 in the Marriott Center on senior night, and BYU has to shoot 2 free throws to win the game with like 0.3 seconds left.
Trevin Nell gets fouled. Oh.
If I'm him, I want that spot. I want the redemption.
And in that case, I'd actually feel pretty good, because I think Trevor would be like, I need these right now. But
I'll tell you what, if that first one didn't go in, I don't feel great about that second one. Just imagine the pressure you feel in that situation if you were him in that spot. Just looking at the crowd being like, oh my gosh. Also, this is a weird basketball thing, but like, whenever you're at a big environment and everything, and a guy goes to the free throw line to shoot, don't you feel that's almost worse? I feel like I'd be way more nervous with a silent crowd than I would a crowd screaming at me.
A nervous home crowd.
Yeah, and maybe that's just because I'm like twisted and I've got anxiety or something in my brain or something. But like, I feel like a silent crowd at home, I would feel way more pressure than people screaming in my face.
It's tough because, yeah, I mean, when you're in a crowd that's just like, it's so loud and everything's on you. I mean, it's hard to say. I can't say we've ever. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you've been in that situation.
No, I haven't. No,
I haven't.
The closest situation we'd get to in that spot is like if we got picked to do the Qualtrics like halftime or half court shot, or we make like a celebrity game. That would be sick.
Celebrity church ball game. Oh,
we might have to make that happen.
We might have to.
We partner with like a charity or something. Do a little celebrity church ball game.
Hey, reach out to us. Our DMs are open if you want to sponsor.
They just make us call the game.
Like, you guys play?
Anyhow, all right. MVP and predictions time. Cincinnati, BYU. Chase, who is your MVP in this game, and what is your score prediction?
All right, might be an easy pick based on what happened last game, but I'm loving the way things are moving for Dallin Hall. And I think Cincinnati is going to put a really big emphasis on guys like Yegor Demon, Richie Saunders, who smoked them last time. And I think Dallin's going to be like this knight in shining armor out of nowhere guy for the Cougars who like really has a big game. If you look at the stats last game, 0 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, didn't score much. He still had an impact like he always does, but it just wasn't a scoring night. And it's kind of been that way, throughout all conference play. And we said last podcast, I said, I miss this aggressive Dallin Hall. And maybe that was the spark that gets it going. And so with all the focus on the other guys Cincinnati is going to be bringing, I think Dallin actually has a big game. I'm going to say he's my MVP. Score prediction, I think it's close. I really do, because they're not punking Cincinnati again. That's for dang sure. So I'm going to go ahead and say BYU wins a tight affair. I think BYU wins 68-65. And it's a close one.
All right. I love it. I'm going to go my MVP. It's that meme. It's time to go back to that old me. Yegor Demon is my MVP in this game. I touched on it earlier. Wes Miller in this. I am so curious to see right out the gate how Cincinnati and Wes Miller guard Yegor Demon in this game. Because if they go under on screens, he's going to still take those shots. And I still think he should take those shots. if he knocks him down, this game's blown wide open. Everything around this team, everybody's going to be able to get in rhythm. He's going to find people in their spots. The cable lob threat's going to be there. The pick and roll is going to be moving, and his confidence is going to be sky high at that point. Yegor Demon's my MVP in this game, and I hope he's able to dictate the tempo, speed it up a little bit more, and get Cincinnati out of their game a little bit. Like we talked about, Cincinnati wants to muck it up, slow it down, get a Tony Bennett Virginia-style basketball game going. BYU wants to kind of do the opposite, and Yegor is going to be the key in making sure that happens. Score prediction, once again, I said it's time to go back to that old me. BYU wins this game at the very end, 69-68, low-scoring affair. The under probably hits in this game. I don't know what the total is, but it's going to be a gross, muck-it-up game, and BYU actually gets it done from the free throw line in this one.
Love it. You think BYU wins on free throws? I
think BYU knocks down free throws.
How great would you feel after that? BYU wins tough quad one road game.
If they're going to win this game, they got to knock down free throws. It's that simple.
Yeah, it is.
What a great analysis. You can't get that analysis anywhere else, Chase.
They're going to have to score more than them.
They're going to have to score more than them. They're going to have to play really hard, and they're going to have to really knock down some shots.
I think they have to believe in themselves, Carter. I think that's the biggest key. Man, if you're BYU, like you've thought about it, you know it, maybe you've even practiced it, but like, man, like you go to the free throw line now and you're just like thinking, like it's in the back of your head, right? You're like, dude, we can't keep missing these.
Oh, yeah.
Then all of a sudden it clanks, and you're like, oh,
we were hanging out post-game for like 30 minutes, and we saw Yegor sitting there practicing free throws for half an hour, basically, and you could tell, like, anytime he would miss one, it just, and it's going to be in the back of their heads. Obviously it is, and so, yeah, I think that's a great point. But, yeah. Anything else?
Nope, other than we'll be recording right after, as always, Saturday night. So please, leave us your thoughts. I've loved all of the comments afterwards. It's been the best.
It might be worth going live after this game because it's at a good time. It's not like 11 p.m. on the East Coast.
Depending on the result, I guess.
Yeah, if BYU wins, we'll commit to going live. How about that?
I'm committed.
All right, I love
Respect my decision.
Yeah, and the other key in this game is BYU needs to rise and shout. I'm just kidding. All right, let's get out of here. This is getting weird. At Chase,
don't let the band go.
The rock band is not attending the Cincinnati game. BYU
what if they do? They're like,
what
we
if they
felt
do?
Bad. We traveled. We missed all these games. We got.
What if the rock band traveled and then BYU lost by like 30? You think they get? You think they go to another game, or you think
people would actually riot? I think people would like kick them out. There might be like some words said to the band at games.
I love it. Anyhow, at Churchball Pod on everything, at Carter BA, at Chase_Rogers0. If you're listening to this and you're an NBA fan, Chase is hopping on the podcast. We're doing an NBA trade deadline show, so check that out. If you're listening right now to this Churchball episode, it is out on CarterCast feeds on Twitter. If you follow our Twitter, you probably see it on there as well. YouTube, Spotify, wherever. Go check it out. NBA trade deadline stuff, a lot of fun stuff on there. So check that out. We'll be back for Saturday. If BYU wins, we'll be going live on Twitter. Live, not like streaming live. And we can comment and react live to your comments like we did after the Baylor game. We will see y'all next time.